him and some other rappers who are considered to be politically conscious getting a lot of flack uh, during the pandemic, during the mass protests for not being active enough.
Those criticisms are pretty unfair since he kind of predicted this and he talks about himself being a prophet. But when you hear on songs like Mortal Man and his interview with Tupac, how they spoke about like the next time there's going to be a riot, like it's going to be like Nat Turner style, you know, riot in the streets. And you kind of saw that last year with the riots in the midst of the pandemic. And so it's like, what more does Kendrick have to say? Should he kind of toot his own horns like, I told y'all 5 years ago, and y'all didn't listen to me. And, you know, it's like, no, he said it.
Let me put you on game.
All right. Our main man, Kung Fu Kenny, teamed up with his baby cousin, Baby Keem, to drop a new single titled Family Ties. We've seen some interesting marketing from Baby Keem and from Kendrick, basically leading up to this being a single and being a thing. But what are your impressions and what are your first impressions of the track itself? Do you have any thoughts on the video? Like basically, what are you thinking about the return of King Kunta?
It was jarring to say the least. Like, I think we're actually the first time I saw it, you showed it to me, and I thought the visual aspect of the video was pretty cool and interesting. You know, Baby Keem, he's kind of ratchet, and he says some some crazy stuff, and like it was just that was just set me off. And then the flow switches and the beat switches, I didn't know how to make heads or tails of the song. And then Kendrick comes on and he's doing some cool stuff. And then he drops a bar about, you know, being the vaccine, and he's talking about pandemic. And I'm kind of having like vaccine pandemic bar fatigue. I'm tired of rappers talking about it. It's like a topic that I know is going to come, but at least try to play with it with different words than words that I've heard this whole year over and over again. And so I was just like, what is this? But then I actually started listening to the song multiple times. And for some strange reason, it just keeps getting better every time I listen to it. And now I love it. And now I think that the video is pretty awesome. And the visual effects that they were able to do, some of the shots that they were able to pull off, like that one shot of Kendrick driving the limo, and Baby Keem is all the way in the back, you know, with the shorty. And then Kendrick fires a shot at the other car that's chasing him, and that car swerves off. And at first I'm like, oh, this is obviously done on, you know, some tractor trailer. And then you see Kendrick's actually driving the car. I'm like, okay, no, they're doing some really fantastic visual stuff with this. And then you see how the video ties in perfectly with the actual song. And I love seeing that in music videos. I don't like, sometimes it's cool to see abstract stuff that doesn't really tie into the video, but I love seeing things that directly tie in. Like when Keem was saying, beat him up, and he had the bat, and then you see him like fighting off the crowds on both sides. I'm like, that's so fucking, part of my language, that's so fire. Like, I just love seeing those little tie-ins. And then Kendrick doing his dance with the PG Lang flag in the background. Yeah. Visually stunning, I would say. How about you?
Yeah, I felt like you the first time I saw it. I didn't really know exactly how to feel about it. There's so much going on. Especially like when you talk about the production, there's so many different beat switches. There's so many different movements. I think I compared it to like the sicko mode beat transitions, even though like it's completely different from that. But like after the second listen, I was like, I get what they're doing here. Like I really enjoy, like you put some horns on a beat and you pretty much got me. Like I'm pretty much sold with like in terms of horns on hip hop beats. And I've never been like a really big Baby Keem guy. Like I've listened to some of the songs, but he sounds a lot like, or he sounded a lot like a lot of the newer rappers that I can't necessarily understand, even though I try to, in terms of like what they're doing with their flows. But on this song and on some of the features that I've heard him on recently, I've really been impressed with his ability to bring like a charisma to a track. And I think that him and Kendrick kind of have that in common in terms of the way that they use their voices and the way that they use their flows. And I love the way that he flowed on this. I love the creativity of the visuals and how each video like overlays over another video. So like there's always something to look at no matter where you're looking. So yeah, it was a really interesting video overall. And I think it kind of fits with the aesthetic that they've been going with the PG Lang company that we've seen from previous videos. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do going forward. So I don't know if I'm pretty sure it's a Baby Keem song. Yeah. So I'm excited to see what his debut album is going to look like, especially like it's with Kendrick's fingerprints all over it. I'm excited to see what he does next because he's growing on me a lot as an artist.
Yeah. And it's funny. I hear similarities in their rap voices, and which makes me wonder whose voice came first. Because I've heard Kendrick do that high pitched, like nasally attacking of the beat. and hearing Baby Keem do it, but like that is his kind of shtick, and that's the way he always sounds. Makes me wonder, like, who really influenced too. But ultimately, they don't seem to be afraid of that similarity, as they're both doing their thing on this song, and they're not really clashing with each other. In terms of the song, though, K-Dot had some bars, man. And he was just like re-establishing himself. Like, don't forget, I will smoke on your top 5, and
Smoking
I will
on
put
your top 5 tonight.
like, I was like, here Kendrick go again, about to, get another control versus something. And he's just reaffirmed his status as being an incredible artist. And I know something amazing is coming up with this final TDE album, and just I know something else on the horizon with Baby Keem and whoever else he'll collab with under the PG Lang distribution is going to be pretty spectacular.
Yeah,
I
really enjoyed his verse, especially like when him and Keem start trading off towards the end. And then like, Kendrick, cocky Kendrick, and Kendrick on like his "I'm the best rapper in the game" steez is always like a really entertaining listen. And we also heard him kind of address some social justice issues in a way, like where he was talking about overnight activists and how like him and some other rappers who are considered to be politically conscious getting a lot of flack during the pandemic, during the mass protests for not being active enough, when like, that criticism in a lot of ways was coming from a lot of people that weren't doing the work before. So I understand like where he was coming from with that, but it's refreshing to hear basically where Kendrick is at in terms of his mental state. So
and it's also really fascinating because those criticisms are pretty unfair, since he kind of predicted this, and he talked about himself being a prophet. But when you hear on songs like Mortal Man and his interview with Tupac, how they spoke about like the next time there's going to be a riot, like it's going to be like Nat Turner style, riot in the streets, that's going to be crazy. And you kind of saw that last year with the riots in the midst of the pandemic, and just a lot of the craziness that was going on. And so it's like, what more does Kendrick have to say? Should he kind of toot his own horn? Like, I told y'all 5 years ago, you didn't listen to me. And it's like, no, he said it, and let his actions in the past and whatever he's doing on a regular basis in his community really speak for what his stance is on this whole matter. And I appreciate that. I think it's different, and it's not what people expect, but I think people should take it for what it is and understand where he's coming from. And then like, I got to, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least talk about one of my favorite bars when he said, "New flow's coming, be patient, brother, show my and take y'all to class. I multitask like Megan, brother." The Hulk Hogan influence of saying like brother like that, and then realizing, oh, he's talking about, I'm going to school you and be ratchet, just like Megan Thee Stallion. And showing his ass, which is shown to be kind of like a buffoonery kind of thing, but just him trying like that juxtaposition and that metaphor, that entendre, I'm like, this, like, yes, Kendrick, give me more. I need more bars, please. And he snapped on this. He snapped on this, and he had the lyrical miracle. So I dig it.
Yeah, it's a great track. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with his album and what Keem does with his album as well, and what that whole production crew does with their whatever their aesthetic is and whatever. I don't even know what PG Lang is to be honest, but whatever that thing is, like whatever happens with that, I'm excited to see what they're going to be producing. But great track.
Yeah, man.